With the recent success of both the Insane Trilogy and Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled, the Crash Bandicoot series has seen its biggest popularity spike since its heyday on the PS1. Whether it be 3D platforms, kart racers, or even party games, Crash always seems to find himself wrapped up in a new adventure, thanks to Dr. Cortex's evil schemes. But in this crazy world of mad scientists and time-traveling animals, we ask, who are the protectors of the Wumpa Islands? Who are the evil geniuses? And who's a few boxes short of a clear gem? Today, we'll be ranking the major characters from the mainline titles, plus some racing games. I'm Brad with One Up Binge, and this is Crash Bandicoot, Good to Evil. As usual, we'll be starting with the most pure character and working our way down. The gold medal of good goes to Uka-Uka, the spirit of an ancient witch doctor encased in a floating mask. The guardian of the islands and the ultimate force against evil, Uka-Uka spends all the games acting as a father figure to Crash and Coco and aiding their fight against Cortex. He's always the quickest to react when villains plan to wreak havoc on the Earth, especially his evil twin brother, Uka-Uka. He's always gone through the trouble of scattering tons of boxes that hold a part of his spirit across the planet to grant Crash invulnerability once broken. Now that's dedication. Kind, generous, and protective of all things good, it's hard to find any flaws with Uka-Uka, except that maybe he goes too easy on evildoers such as his brother. Coming in at second is Crash's little sister, Coco. Clearly the more intelligent of the siblings, she often has to guide Crash in his adventures to make sure he stays focused. In the third game, Crash Bandicoot Warped, she joins in the fight directly, tackling a few vehicle stages and even taking down Engine on the moon. She's an excellent hacker and has a gadget for every problem she and her brother face. She may be seen as a bit of a bossy character since the first thing we see her do is order Crash around, but she genuinely cares about him and will always help him out of trouble. Spinning into third place is the series protagonist, Crash. Dr. Cortex had originally planned for Crash to be the general of his genetically engineered animal army, but he ended up creating his own worst enemy after he tried to use the Cortex Vortex before it was ready. Ever since, Crash has been hopping from island to island, bouncing off the heads of evildoers and foiling the Doctor's plans of world domination. That's enough to land him high up in the good category. However, he's not without his flaws. For one thing, he can't even tell the difference between his own sister and Cortex impersonating her into insanity, proving that he's not quite as smart as the average hero. Also, in the second game, Cortex Strikes Back, he's pretty quick to work with Cortex to collect the crystals, after the Doctor claims to need them to save the world from a force that threatens to destroy Earth.
Bring me the crystals, Crash.
Cortex is lying, of course, but Crash isn't very intelligent, and he could easily have trusted Cortex, if not for warnings from Coco and Dr. Embryo. All that being said, he always ends up saving the day from mad scientist, evil floating mask, and even kart racing alien kings, so he safely lands a spot in the top 3 of the good characters. Just below Crash and Coco are their pets, Polar, Pura, and Baby T. These cute baby animals assist the Bandicoots in a few levels of the second and third games, usually providing a speedy ride through a level with lots of large pits to hurdle, or maybe a giant monster to run away from. Polar and Pura do end up competing against our heroes in Crash Nitro Kart, but since they were under hypnotic mind control, we won't count that against them. Overall, these little creatures have been a great help to the heroes since the beginning of the franchise, though one does have to wonder if they'll be the same way once they mature. Up next is the brawniest Bandicoot, Crunch. Crunch is yet another one of Cortex's creations, whose sole purpose was to wipe out Crash Bandicoot, and he tried no less than 5 times to defeat the Orange Tornado. Not off to a great start, but in fairness, his mind was under the control of Cortex for almost his entire first appearance. By the end of Wrath of Cortex, Crunch is free to choose his own path, and thankfully, he chooses the righteous one. Though he doesn't play a major role in most of the games past his debut, he's playable in Crash Nitro Kart, which involves racing to save planet Earth, so he can at least add one world-saving adventure to his tally. Pasadena Opossum. She's a world-renowned racing champion and the personal racer of Ebenezer von Clutch, the developer of all the racetracks in CTTR. She immediately shuts down Cortex's ambitions of turning Von Clutch's park into a new evil base and works diligently with the others to find out who's stolen the power crystals. She genuinely cares for Von Clutch, as she is distraught when seeing him die without his black power crystal to keep him going. However, some of her dialogue hints at her being a pretty sore loser whenever she loses a race. Rounding off the good side is Crash's girlfriend from the first game, Tana. Tana is most notable for being captured over and over, like a typical damsel in distress. I think Mario could probably relate to this. In the first game, she isn't much more than a goal for Crash to reach, but she does sucker punch one of the lab assistants in the opening cutscene of the Insane Trilogy. Strangely, we don't see her again past the very first game, so maybe she decided to leave Crash for someone who can actually talk. Now that we've counted off the good, we're moving on to the more questionable characters. This is the gray area. Kicking off the gray area, we have Fake Crash. Based off a hilariously inaccurate Japanese plush of Crash Bandicoot, Fake Crash occasionally appears as an Easter egg in several games. He can be seen dancing in various locations once the player has 100%ed a save file in the original Warped or the Insane Trilogy. Fake Crash also became a playable character in later titles like Crash Team Racing and Crash Bash. Oddly enough, his mask guide switches from Uka-Uka in CTR to Uka-Uka in C&K, hinting that he's been on both the good and evil sides. He's about as articulate as the real Crash, so we probably won't hear anything about his loyalties from him. Not far from Pasadena is our good friend Ebenezer von Clutch. This German cyborg's life work is Motor World, an amusement park home to the most dangerous racing tracks in the world. After Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex end up crashing inside his park's gate, he recruits the heroes to help him find the stolen power crystals in his park. He has love for both speed and violence, and he allows people to shoot each other with live cannons while racing on his track. He's also implied to be greedy, as the park workers often mention how much of a cheapskate he is. Still, it's not like he forces anyone to race, unlike some of the other characters we'll see down the list. Up next is the gluttonous chief, Papu Papu. He's the tribal leader of Insanity Island and the very first boss in the whole series. Though he serves as an antagonist to Crash in almost all of his appearances, you can't really blame him for having some animosity toward the Bandicoot. After all, how would you feel if a giant orange marsupial fell from the sky onto your island, started breaking all your boxes, stole your fruit, and then woke you from your nap? Yeah, not too happy. Right after the first boss is the second in the series, Ripperoo. Another one of Cortex's mutated animals, Ripperoo is quite possibly the most insane character in the entire franchise. Each time we see him, he appears in a straitjacket, and his primary methods of attack are explosives. After his first defeat, he apparently seeks higher education off-screen and makes great progress with his mental instability. That is, until he runs into Crash a second time and reverts back into his original crazy self. It's safe to assume that even though he works for the bad guys, he probably isn't in control of his actions most of the time, so he earns a spot in the gray area, for now. Just escaping the bad territory is Dr. Nitrous Brio, Cortex's original lab assistant. He's shown to be the more sensible of the two scientists, if not the more sane one, and warns Cortex about the possible dangers of using the Cortex Vortex before it's ready. Brio is the one who built the Evolvo Ray, meaning that he's responsible for all the mutated creatures in the Wumpa Islands, including all the animal bosses. But since that means he's also indirectly responsible for Crash and Coco, we can't count his invention as a total black mark on his record. What mainly lands him out of the evil group is his choice to directly oppose Cortex and Cortex Strikes Back, telling Cortex to collect gems instead of crystals. Brio also tries to stop Crash from collecting crystals entirely by sending several bosses to attack Crash as long as he works with Cortex.
And I will do anything in my power to stop you.
By the end though, if the player has collected all the gems in the game, Brio helps Crash destroy Cortex's space station with a giant laser. Granted, that does end up releasing Uka-Uka in the next game, but it's unlikely Brio knew that would happen. Ultimately, he's done more harm than good, but he's also done more good than any other villain in the series, so he teeters on the edge of neutral and bad. With that, we move out of the gray area and on to the bad and the evil. Our first baddie is Koala Kong, a bodybuilding mutated koala that clearly skips leg day. Come on, bruh. His first appearance is in Crash Bandicoot as a boss fight. During said fight, he lobs giant boulders at Crash, but leaves himself open to attack so that he can flex his muscles. He's certainly not humble, but other than attacking Crash and having a vanity problem, he doesn't do anything too egregious in any of his appearances. Up next is the animal minion with the most appearances in the series, Tiny Tiger. The ironically named Tiny is a genetically mutated Tasmanian tiger who was originally a servant of Embryo, sent to stop Crash from gathering crystals, but he apparently switched to Cortex's side between the second and third games. The lore surrounding his creation is inconsistent, but he serves Cortex in every installment after Cortex strikes back. He's a relentless enemy who often leads to his own defeat because he's one of Cortex's dumbest minions. Perhaps Tiny refers to the size of his brain. Interestingly, Cortex laments Tiny's defeat in Warped by saying, "Tiny was a good fellow. He hated everyone and everything, but a good heart nonetheless."
Please be more reasonable with my minions next time.
Pinstripe Potteroo is next on our list. Donning a formal suit, Pinstripe is a parody of the 1920s mafia gangster stereotype. He speaks with a thick Brooklyn accent and carries a Tommy gun everywhere he goes. He's Cortex's personal bodyguard and the CEO of Cortex Power. Pinstripe is probably the most reckless of all the villains, as after his defeat, he ends up accidentally shooting the generator, shutting down power to almost every area of Cortex Castle. His gangster appearance and tendencies could mean that he's not very trustworthy, even for a villain. Surprisingly low on the list is an oft-forgotten antagonist, Willy Wumpa Cheeks. He only appears in Crash Tag Team Racing, but he commits some pretty awful acts in his only appearance. For starters, he's pretty damn creepy, even for an amusement park mascot. That wouldn't necessarily be bad, but then he decides to steal all the power gems from around Motor World, forcing Crash and company to retrieve them. His worst act of the entire game is stealing the black power gem from Ebenezer von Clutch, dooming the engineer to die if he doesn't get it back. His motivation for doing all this? Well, we never find out. He admits to the crime. After all, the characters briefly believe Crash is the culprit, but after that, he never says why he stole the gems or what he plans to do with them. Maybe Willy just really hated his job, but that's no reason to kill the man that he's been working with for years. Next up is probably the most intimidating of Cortex's minions, Dingodile. Instead of the standard mutated animal, he's actually a fusion of a dingo and a crocodile, which makes him unique among the villains.
G'day, mate. Dingodile's the name.
He's first seen in Warped, about to roast a penguin with his flamethrower, but is thankfully stopped by Crash in the nick of time. Afterwards, he appears regularly to make trouble for Crash and the gang. He's one of the only animal minions that can actually string a sentence together, meaning he's one of the more intelligent villains. He shows disloyalty and Twinsanity, attacking Cortex and Crash, and planning to take all the evil twins' treasure for himself. We also have to give props to Dingodile for striking fear into the hearts of young players with a line he says after Crash defeats him. "You thrashed me, mate. No worries, but you'll soon be up against much worse." Our next entry is Dr. Cortex's daughter, niece, Nina Cortex. From what we know of her, Nina grew up a normal, sweet girl who had a particular love for animals.
Obviously, I've made a few modifications here and there.
Her uncle saw this as a problem, so he gave her bionic fist that would not allow her to touch animals without accidentally killing them, and sent her to Madame Amberley's Academy of Evil to learn how to misbehave. Since then, she fights by her uncle's side when she is not trying to betray him, and has developed a particular hatred for Coco and her appearances after Twinsanity. She shows no remorse for any of her actions, but because her disposition is pretty much a product of her uncle's meddling, she misses out on the top 10 most evil. In 10th place is Entrance, the self-proclaimed master of hypnotism. This evil egg from the 5th dimension has a nasty habit of kidnapping people and hypnotizing them to do his bidding. He's put a spell on everyone from Crash's pets to Fake Crash to Dingodile, and it's always for nefarious purposes. Taking away people's free will is a terrible thing, but since he never works of his own accord and is always a secondary antagonist, he's the lowest of the top 10. Next is Cortex's most recurring colleague, Dr. N-Jin. He lost his sanity in an incident involving missile development, which left the missile permanently implanted in his head. Cortex recruited him to replace Embryo after the events of the first game, and he's a constant nuisance to Crash throughout the series. He's loyal to Cortex to a fault, with the exception of the time he worked with Brio and Tropy to steal the twins' treasure in Twinsanity. It's safe to say that he spells out trouble for the heroes every time he's around. Racing into 8th place is the series' first alien character, Nitro-Fueled. He's the main antagonist of Crash Team Racing from the planet Gasmoxia. Oxide travels the galaxy to challenge the best racers on each planet to a competition. If the planet's champion can beat him, he'll pack up and leave. But if he wins, he'll take over the planet and enslave the population. Talk about a high-stakes race. Once he's beaten, he vows to give up racing forever, but he doesn't stick to his word and is racing once again in Crash Nitro Kart. Short-tempered and a sore loser, he bases his superiority on his prowess as a racer, but he also cheats in the final battle of CTR. Maybe he's not such a great racer after all. Next up are Twinsanity's evil twins, Victor and Moritz. These bird brothers are the products of Cortex's very first failed experiment. Their backstory is revealed in a cutscene that shows an 8-year-old Cortex testing a prototype Evolvo Ray on his 2 pet parrots. Instead of creating 2 avian minions, he accidentally sends his pets to the 10th dimension. During their time there, the twins mutated into super geniuses with a special hatred for the one who trapped them in their cage. Armed with the power to turn inanimate objects into evil monsters, they return to Earth with a plan to destroy Cortex and the planet. Uka-Uka perceives the twins as such a threat that he recruits the help of Uka-Uka to stand against them. But shockingly, the masks are easily defeated, leaving Crash and Cortex to defend the planet.
Join me, and together we shall defeat this evil infestation.
Though a threatening presence, they meet a definitive ending, being eaten by an evil version of Crash. As malevolent as they were, we likely won't be seeing them again. The elementals from Wrath of Cortex are next. These 4 floating masks, Rocco, Wawa, Pyro, and Lolo, control the 4 elements and use them to bring chaos to the land.
I'll fix that attitude problem of yours!
Uka-Uka summons them to act as power sources for Crunch in his attempt to destroy Crash once and for all.
Is it getting hot in here?
He mentions they have been responsible for many natural disasters, as well as the Ice Age thousands of years ago. They caused so much damage to the world that they need to be sealed away to prevent further destruction. Their origins are unknown, but their only purpose is to wreak havoc. If nothing else, they should definitely stay sealed away forever. Starting the top 5 is Dr. Nefarious Tropy. His claim to fame is building the Time Twister machine, earning him the title Master of Time, and making him arguably the most successful inventor of all the end scientists.
This time, you've done it!
On the surface, he may appear to be just another standard evil genius, but what sets him apart from the others are the dangerous possibilities of his time-warping technology. The manual of the Wrath of Cortex mentions that he likes to purposely disrupt the flow of time and create paradoxes for his own amusement. It's quite possibly the most destructive form of random chaos when you think about the implications of the technology. He also seems to be much more capable than Cortex, and he could possibly succeed where Cortex has failed if Uka-Uka promoted Tropy to top commander. At number 4 is the main antagonist of Crash Nitro Kart and the most sinister of the alien characters, Emperor Velo the 27th. Much like Nitro's Oxide, he forces the best racers in the galaxy to compete for his amusement. Unlike Oxide, he actually abducts people from their home planets to compete in his Coliseum. Not only does he force Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex to win a series of races to even earn the right to return home, but he also threatens to destroy Earth if they refuse to race. The worst part? He mentioned that he's done this to millions of people across the galaxy, right before he challenges the racers himself. Once he's beaten the first time, he allows the champions to leave, but says that he still must destroy Earth, since they refuse to keep racing for the Empire's entertainment.
You mean Earth? But now I have to destroy Earth.
By collecting all the time relics, the racers can challenge Velo a second time for the fate of planet Earth. After he's been beaten again, he literally explodes in a fit of rage, revealing the actual Velo to be just a little goblin, too small to even lift the scepter. Given the amount of people he's kidnapped for the sole purpose of making them race, he earns a place at the very end of the evil spectrum. On to the top 3 most evil, we have the series' main antagonist, Dr. Neo Cortex. This mad doctor has been evil since he left the cradle. He was born into a family of circus clowns, of all things, and he seeks to take over the world as an act of vengeance for being ignored and ridiculed by his peers for his entire life. He's got one of the most inflated egos in the whole series, and he often takes credit for other people's work. He's kidnapped countless innocent animals from their homes to create his evil army, and will stop at nothing to destroy Crash, even after spending a whole game working by his side.
Crystals. Of course.
One may think that Twinsanity would take his evil score down by just a bit, but he only works with Crash in that game because the villains are trying to kill Cortex personally, and still tries to kill Crash by the end. Despite his unending failures, Cortex always returns with a new scheme to take over the world, enslaving and experimenting on tons of creatures along the way. For his sheer relentlessness, he earns the Bronze Medal of Evil. In second place is a character who only makes one appearance, but could be considered the most evil human character in the entire series, Madame Amberly. This oversized headmistress runs her very own Academy of Evil, where children are sent to learn how to become villains. Cortex encounters her while trespassing in her school, and he's visibly terrified by her presence, even as an adult. She taught her malevolent ways to recurring villains like Cortex, Brio, Engine, and Nina, all of whom cause enough trouble for the world. But after factoring in that she's responsible for generations of villains by abusing them as children, we have to give her an A+ in wickedness. And finally, the gold medal of villainy goes to the great and mighty Uka-Uka. He was first introduced in Crash Bandicoot Warped as the true mastermind behind Cortex's operations in the Wumpa Islands. His sole act of generosity in the series is not incinerating Cortex because his blunders accidentally released Uka from his temple prison. Uka is enraged at the fact that his servant has failed him twice, with the only excuse being one of Cortex's failed experiments coming back to shoot him out of the sky both times.
You have failed me twice!
Nearly every evil plot can be traced back to him, considering most of the villains in the series are subservient to him. It's also shown that he has the power to possess people, as he overtakes Cortex several times in Warped. This means he could potentially be enslaving all of his underlings, rather than simply recruiting them. His main aspiration is either the enslavement of all living things or the destruction of the world, and the only time he teams up with the good guys is to prevent someone else from doing what he calls his job.
That's my job!
A perfect reflection of his brother, Uka-Uka has absolutely no redeeming qualities when it comes to his morality, making him our pick for most evil character in the Crash series. But how would you rank the Crash characters? Comment down below to let us know. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more video game good to evil episodes. But most importantly, stay wicked.